Hey, it's Shay, and you're listening to Casual Cattle Conversations. Whether you're a seasoned rancher or just curious about the cattle world, this podcast dives into the stories, science, and strategies shaping the future of ranching. Let's get started and keep your herd ahead of the herd. Hey folks, it's Shay here, and welcome back to another episode. If you're new, welcome. If you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back. This is going to be such a fun topic because we are visiting with Cheyenne Schriefer, and we are going to be talking about vacation ideas for ranchers. Now, I know it's not typical management conversations or technology, but we do talk about running ranches like businesses, and business owners need to take vacations. So it fits in, trust me. Cheyenne's going to be giving some great ideas for different weekend trips or even week-long trip ideas that she has seen ranchers enjoy. She has a travel agency, so she gets to work with a lot of great people, and she married a fourth-generation farmer and rancher, so she understands. Now, I do want to make one request from you all. As you know, I am always trying to improve my podcast content and create content that is valuable to you, that you want to listen to. And I've been doing this for over 5 years and want to continue doing it for many more years to come. But the only way I can do that is to get feedback from you. So I am asking you to be as honest as possible. Go to my website in the Contact Us form, and that'll send me an email. But tell me what you like about the show, what you maybe would want to improve about the show, so that way I can make those changes. Do you think the intros are too long? Do they need to be longer? Do you want more in-depth content? Do you want conversations that are more closer to 60 minutes? Or do you like the 30-minute conversations? Whatever it is my audio quality not right? I don't know unless you tell me. So any constructive feedback, whether it's about what to keep or what to change, please go to my website, fill out that Contact Us form so I know you're listening and I can make those adjustments. But with that, let's visit with Cheyenne. All right, Cheyenne, it is a pleasure and I think going to be really fun to have you on the podcast. This is for the listeners out there, this is going to be a fun conversation. We're actually going to be talking about some vacation ideas for ranchers because, yes, everyone needs to travel and take a break away from the ranch. So Cheyenne, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
So before we dive into some ideas and the topic at hand, tell the listeners a little bit about what life looks like for you today and what you kind of do.
Yeah, so I married a fourth generation farmer and rancher, and we live by Golden Valley, North Dakota. And if you would have asked me if this was the life I pictured for myself when I was in high school or even maybe freshman year of college, I would have said, heck no. But here I am and loving every bit of it. We have 2 kids and I homeschool them right now. So that is what my morning looks like. And then after that, I jump headfirst into all things travel. I've been running my travel agency from my home for a little over 8.5 years now. And when I first married my husband and moved out here, I worked at a bank, and it was okay. It was fine. It just wasn't really fulfilling me. And I knew I wanted to be home with my kids at some point. So I kind of just took that leap of faith and started my own business. And a year later, I quit the bank and was working this full time. So I kind of haven't looked back since, and it's just really grown. I was a one-woman team for quite a few years. And now I have a team of 2 assistants, and I also have 5 other agents that book travel as well. So it looks a little busy now.
Well, you guys certainly do a great job taking care of your clients. So I'm curious, you being married to a fourth-generation rancher, how do you make time for your own family to take trips and get away from the ranch?
It's not easy, and it's definitely been a process getting everybody on board. Ranchers are some of the hardest working people I know, right? I mean, everybody knows a rancher or farmer and rancher, and they know that they are basically married to the operation all year round. So it's like making that choice to make it a priority. It's easy to just not do it because it costs money and it takes time away, and it's hard to maybe find somebody to do chores for you or use that tiny little sliver we have of, between calving and branding and making hay. So it's just always something. But for us, it was just making that a point. And, both of us grew up traveling in different capacities, lots, close to home, small type trips for the most part, because we had family members that worked very hard. And I'm grateful for that. But you also miss out on time with your kids, right? Or we missed out on time with our parents, maybe. And so just making that a priority to show our kids that they are important and they matter. And you get kind of our crumbs sometimes, but like, we're going to go on vacation and it is all about you. There is no phone, there is no email, there is no cows, there is no tractor. Like, it is all you. So that was the thing for us. And I know that we are very blessed in that we have multiple generations. And so we're able to do that. And I know that is not the case for many families out there. But for us, it works. We kind of just tag team. And if Riley's parents are going on vacation, we're home holding down the fort. And if we're on vacation, they're home holding down the fort. So it does kind of stink because you don't always get to go on vacation together. But we're trying to kind of find some creative ways to make that happen, hopefully in the next year or so as well.
That is a challenge. I know my husband's side of the family wanted to do, instead of for Christmas, wanted to just do, a little summer trip where everyone goes. And it's like, yeah, well, we have to do summer because we're not feeding cows. But
yep.
Lo and behold, the week before we left, I think all of us questioned if we should back out because it seemed like everything went wrong. But we made it work.
Good.
It all happened. But I know you hear people who aren't ranchers on the business side talk about, Getaway, you come back to your business with fresh eyes. Do you feel like your husband feels the same way when he comes back after a vacation to the ranch? Or, is he able to enjoy himself?
Yeah. No, it's a very valid question. I think even with any industry, that first day, it takes a minute to kind of almost remove yourself from like work brain. And even like going on vacation without your kids, like it takes that day of transition to not have like mom or dad brain on because you're just used to having to take care of other people and other things. And then, day 2 and day 3 come in and you're like, wow, I don't have to worry about anything right now. Like there is nothing that I need to take care of today besides just relax and enjoy. And I think with any business, especially farmers and ranchers, burnout is so real. And for my husband, he takes on a lot of maybe more of the techie side of things because his parents that's not something that they thrive at, right? So maybe they're taking more of the phone calls as bull sale season's coming around, but he's doing all of the computer work. So he's getting the website up. He's making sure the videos are done. And so like he just stares at the screen, which I do it all day, but it's like, that's what I do and I love it and it's fine. He's outside usually, like he's used to that. So he's outside all day long and then he comes inside and then all night long, he's working on editing videos and doing all of that stuff. So for him to just not have to worry about anything and just go enjoy is a good reset for him because he's exhausted, right? Everybody's just exhausted if you're up all day working from sun up to sundown and not taking time for yourself or your family to just be together. If that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Hey folks, are you looking to achieve more with your ranch in 2025? Introducing Move the Ranch Forward, a goal-setting guide designed specifically for ranchers. This practical PDF helps you set meaningful goals, create actionable plans, and stay on track even when the unexpected happens, which we know is often in ranching. It includes templates, strategies, and prioritization cheat sheets to make sure you're always moving forward. Ready to make real progress on your ranch? Download Move the Ranch Forward today at casualcattleconversations.com. Yeah. So I want to talk about a few different ideas maybe you could throw out for ranchers. And I want to do some weekend trip ideas and some longer trips. So starting with weekend trips, what are maybe some destinations or other ideas that you recommend people think about?
So that varies so much by the person. So a big part of working like with like a travel agency is that we get to know you a little bit better and figure out what makes you tick. So most people that are in the farming and ranching industry, they like to be outside. They like nature. They like national parks. They like, road trips. They're just used to not, I don't know. I find that most ranchers don't travel. So it overwhelms them, right? Going too far away from home is a little bit overwhelming. So starting out with those smaller trips that maybe could be a day or two's drive away. One that we loved was Banff National Park in Canada. It's strikingly beautiful. If you've been to Glacier, it is like Glacier, but better. And so Glacier, that's another great one. It's an easy drive for most of us that live in North Dakota or maybe even like Eastern Montana. I know that people in Montana probably, it's not that exciting because it's in their backyard, but that's a great one as well. Or Yellowstone, something that has a quick flight. There's lots of like nonstop flights to, if you live over on the eastern side of North Dakota, you can grab a nonstop flight to Nashville now. So that's been a popular one as well, to just do a quick long weekend getaway. You kind of feel like you're in a country town, so things like that. If you're wanting to do something a little bit further from home, you could always do like Napa Valley. There honestly are so many ideas, but it just depends on who you are, what your family looks like. Are you taking your kids? Are you not taking your kids? Do you have little kids at home? Are they coming with you? So it's just we cater to each individual situation, but we just find that national parks seem to be a very popular one with our rancher demographic.
Well, and I think for a while, I used to think that even Theodore Roosevelt Park wasn't that exciting, but I still love to go see it. I mean, that's probably because I grew up with it. I have relatives in that part of the state, so it just was like, we drove through it a couple times a year on the interstate, but now I still like to go and see it just to get away.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be something big. I think sometimes people hear the word vacation and they think that it has to involve a plane ride, and it doesn't. It can even just be a quick trip to, there's this little resort that has hot springs and stuff just like an hour over the border in Canada, north of Brandon. And Riley's parents found that. My husband's parents found that several years ago, and they were like, after we had our first kid, they're like, go, like, we'll take him for the weekend. We did it it's a half a day drive, not even, and had a couple of days there and drove back down. It was an easy 4-day trip. And it was amazing. It was like so relaxing. One of the best spas I've ever been to. I know that's like, I told my husband, he's like, you should definitely mention that one because it was amazing. I was like, I don't know why, but like ranchers and the word spa, they're like, ooh, like, I don't know, someone's touching me, but try it. It's relaxing.
Well, that's funny you bring that up because when you threw out a couples spa or couples massage when you were working on our honeymoon trip, and I told that to Phil, he was like, no one's touching me. And I was like, well, maybe we should book it for different times and I'll just do the 2 back-to-back ones.
Right, there you go.
And you can go to the beach bar or something, but
right, exactly. No, it's funny. My husband's like the bougiest rancher ever. Now when he goes on vacation, he's the one that's like, we should do a spa day. I was like, okay, if you insist.
So I know, again, probably going to be very specific to the person, but how about some of those maybe longer trips for people who are willing to spend 4, 5, 6 days away from the operation if they can find someone to do some chores?
Well, time of year is a big thing, right? So many times we're all in the thick of it in February and you just want a little break before calving season starts. And I know that some people calve in February, so this is not ideal for them. Maybe it has to be January. Maybe it has to be even in December. But Mexico, I mean, I know that there's a lot of, it's a kind of like a hot topic. Is it safe? Is it not safe? I personally am leaving for Mexico in 2 weeks. I love it. It's a great bang for your buck. It's all inclusive. It is warm. It has sand. It has the ocean. Like it has all the things that we never see. So I am a big advocate for Mexico. There's other islands that can be like a quick flight. That's the biggest thing for rural North Dakotans or rural Midwesterners. Like it takes more than 1 day to travel to a lot of those Caribbean islands. And so it just sucks up too much time. it's a waste of time. People don't see the value in spending the night in the airport when you could be in your destination. So really Mexico, Jamaica, and the Dominican Republic are the only true like Mexico, Caribbean beach destinations that you can get to easily. And there's a lot of really great options there. It just depends on, again, are you taking kids? Is it adult only? Like what's the purpose of this trip? Like what are you trying to get out of it? Outside of that, if you are in that ranching community that has that little window, maybe in June, river cruising. Like river cruising is a great way. Because again, I find that a lot of those farmer and rancher couples or families, they don't travel super often. So it's overwhelming and they just want it to be easy. They want someone to take care of them. They don't want to have to worry about like, oh my gosh, I've never traveled abroad. What do I do when I get there? So doing maybe like a small group tour with other people where you have somebody that's meeting you at the airport and taking care of you from beginning to end, or doing like a river cruise or an ocean cruise or something like that where you don't have to worry so much about all of the little logistics and I don't speak that language, that kind of thing. Costa Rica has been one that a lot of the ranchers that I've sent there have just loved it because it's actually a pretty, it's like an agricultural country, so you being able to go and see a working ranch or like maybe a coffee farm, things like that. So Hawaii, I mean, as you know, that's a great option too and has a lot of agricultural opportunities as well. So it just depends, I guess, if you want to sprinkle in egg or if you want it to be like, I don't want to think about egg. I just want to go sit on a beach, plant my butt in the sand and just relax.
So it's funny you say that because when we originally booked our Hawaii trip, we were like, okay, we're going to not make this an ag trip, not make it a work trip. And then anytime someone brought up like growing coffee or we went to the Dole plantation and my husband's an agronomist for those who don't know that. And so he's like, I need to find an agronomist. Like I cannot, like these signs are not enough information. So maybe put a little ag in there just so you don't leave with more questions than answers. But
that is like a testament to like you're in an industry that you're passionate about, right? Like you just can't help yourself. That's like when I go on vacation too, I can't help myself. Like I have to go tour another property or like meet the sales manager or something like that because I can't help myself.
Well, and we went zip lining on Kualoa Ranch and the tour guides were like, wait, you have cows? Can you tell us how to pet the babies? How do we tame them down? And, well, what breeds of cows are these? And we were like, that one looks like it could be Angus. That one's Charlotte. We were good. There was a little bit of everything. It was fun.
Cool.
So you brought up, Mexico or maybe even a few other international trips. What do people need to keep in mind as far as like passports and leaving enough time if they don't have a passport to get that and their trip booked?
Yeah, well, passports, the turnaround time has been a lot better since COVID. It was very backed up, but we just had to apply for the kids 2 years ago, and it was pretty quick. I would definitely not do it like within a month. If you have a couple of months, that's better. 3 months, great. I would not be worried about that at all. On the application, it asks you if you have any upcoming travel plans, and if you do, you're supposed to put the dates down. So I really do think that they kind of look at that and are like, okay, yeah, we can do this. There's also expedition, so you can expedite the passport request, and those can come back in just a few weeks. So if you need to. So there's that as well. But then as far as like traveling internationally, every destination kind of has its own warnings per se. We try to educate our clients as much as we can before they go and maybe give them expectations, like what does the tipping look like, or what does the language barrier look like? If you are going to a non-English speaking country, we definitely would recommend that you allow us to set up at least your arrival transfer so that we know that they can speak English and you can feel comfortable knowing you're going to go where you're supposed to be going, not just hailing a taxi. And I mean, I've done this before personally because I'm my own worst client. And you get in and you're like pointing at your phone, like, here's the address I need to get to. And they like, you don't really know. They just take off and you're like, I hope I'm going to get what I'm supposed to get because they don't speak a word of English and I don't speak French or I don't speak Italian or whatever. So that's a big thing too. And that's the best part about working with the travel agency is just kind of knowing that we have your back and we are, we have your best interest at heart. And so we want you to be taken care of. and for you to not have any stress. Like that is the biggest goal of ours, is that you travel stress-free.
Well, and sometimes even that happens in the United States when you're using an Uber, even if everyone does speak English.
But at least with Uber, you pop in where you're going and you know that it's all set up. So, but sometimes you get into a cab and you're like, I don't know. I hope this is right.
So what other general travel tips, if any, would you like to share?
I would say just be flexible. Like travel can come with hiccups, especially if we're traveling in the winter. Last winter was a beautiful winter. We had minimal travel delays. The winter before that was one that I would rather just not talk about, because I was up at the wee hours of the morning fixing not one or two, but maybe 3 or 4 different people's flights, because it seemed like there was always a storm and the state was entirely shut down for a weekend or 3 days or 2 days or whatever.
6 months.
So, oh my gosh, it just seemed like every other day we were dealing with a statewide no travel advised. But yeah, I would just say that's the biggest one, is just learn to be flexible. And I know that we are such a instant gratification type society right now, and it's like it's so easy to get worked up, and it's like, oh, I only have 4 days on this trip and now it's ruined. Well, number one, get travel insurance, because if you have something like where the weather has delayed your trip, we have options. And if at the very least you can't be flexible and like maybe add a day on the back end because the storm ruined the first day, you can at least get reimbursed for what you're going to be losing out on. So travel insurance is something that I think a lot of people are like, I don't need it. And like, you don't need it until you need it. And that's like with any insurance. And so it's better to just have it and protect yourself and know that you have coverage. Like just literally 2 days ago, I had somebody that was coming home from Mexico, and they got delayed out of Cancun, and they missed their connection in Denver. So they had to stay overnight in Denver. It was a family of 4. So you're looking at meals for 4 people and a hotel room, maybe transportation if it's not at the airport, or, cheap, a free shuttle. And so they asked me right away, like, okay, does insurance cover this? Yes, it does. What do we need to know? Keep your receipts, make sure that you get, proof from the airline that it was delayed and why, and you'll file an insurance claim. They'll send you a check in the mail for everything that you had to pay for out of pocket. So it's like knowing that you don't have to stress out about what happens if situations, but just being flexible, right? So yes, that family was bummed because they're not getting home the day they thought they were. They're getting home the next day, but that's just travel. And they made the most of it. And they were still like, okay, great. Thanks for helping. It is what it is. And we'll get home when we get home. So I know that's harder for ranchers, because that means one more day of somebody else taking care of your cows, or one more day of, whatever. And so that might be tricky for those that don't have, like I said, that other generation on the place. But that's just the biggest one, is just try not to be stressed out. People are willing to help you when you're kind and not grouchy. A lot of times I've had clients that are like, how did you get them to do that? Well, I was just really nice to them on the phone and they wanted to help me. But if you're standing there and you're grouchy at the airline worker that has nothing to do with the delay, they don't really care. They're not going to try to help you because you're not being kind. So that's my 2 cents. I would say be kind and be flexible.
Well, and customer service people like that in those roles deal with so many grouchy people.
Yes.
If you just approach them kindly, like you said, you can like see the physical relief in their body to not be getting yelled at.
Yeah. Well, and I work in a customer service based industry too. So I get it. It's like when a client is mad at me for something out of my control, it like stresses me out. I honestly don't want to help them as much as the other couple that is calling me and they're like, oh my gosh, like, it's okay. We know it's not your fault, but like, what do we do? It's like, well, I'd rather help them because they are being kind than the one that is like, we used you. You're supposed to make sure the airplane leaves on time. Okay, because now I'm a pilot apparently, and I can control the weather and all of the other things. So yes, being kind. Kindness goes so far.
Absolutely. So what tips do you have for someone who is trying to convince their spouse or partner to go on that trip? I know my mom had been trying to convince my dad forever, and it was a couple years ago. He called both my sister and I separately and said, what should I get Mom for Christmas? And this is like 2 days before Christmas. And we had not consulted at all, and we both told him, you're taking her somewhere warm.
Oh, wow. Amazing.
And it took 2 years, but they're doing it.
Good. That's funny that you asked that question because, like I said, it has been a work in progress, and I've been doing this for almost 9 years now. And when I first started, it was nearly impossible to get my husband to agree on going anywhere because it was like there's always too much to do. He always felt guilty, leaving and having his parents take care of things when he was gone. So it is hard to get over that guilt sometimes. And especially, I can't imagine how much guilt there would be if that other family on the ranch doesn't want to travel or they don't take the time to travel. Like, it's great for us because it's like we just take turns. It's harder for me now because I travel a lot more often and it's hard to get him to go with on all of them. So sometimes he's still home without me. But the first year that I was like, okay, I'm selling travel, like people don't buy things from people that don't travel. Like they're not going to work with me if I don't actually go see the world. Right. And so I needed the experience. I wanted to go. And I just told him, I said, hey, and so both of us love to snowboard. And so I said, I'm going to book a snowboarding trip to Switzerland. Did you want to come? And he's like, well, you're not going without me. And I was like, all right, well, I already called your friend and he's coming. So, and so is your sister. And so I just kind of like made this little group trip, and he's like, he has FOMO. So he's like, I am not going to be left out of this. And so that's kind of how I got it started. And now it's easy. Now I just say like, hey, when can we go? Like, is there a time that's better? Can we look at dates for this trip? Like, we take the kids on a trip every year, or we have so far. As they get older, that may be harder, but right now they're little, so it's easier to pack them up and run. They're not running in sports and all sorts of extracurriculars right now. But that was it for me. It was just kind of telling my husband, hey, I'm going with or without you. Do you want to come? And I know that might not work for everybody because some have told me, like, my husband's like, I don't care, go. but that has worked for me.
Oh, absolutely. Very dependent on the situation. And like you said, it is nice when you have generations that are willing to, sub in and take turns for that. But even as far as like asking neighbors to help, I always go back to, well, would you do the same for that neighbor? If they would you support your neighbor if they wanted to leave? Would you be willing to help? Because then if it's mutual, they are probably willing to pick up an extra day here if you get delayed or something like that, because that's out of your control.
Yes. And we actually are taking care of some neighbors' cows so they can drive out to California and see their son for Thanksgiving. So that's exactly right too, is just having those neighbors that can help out as well. But again, I know it's a big undertaking, especially with those bigger operations. And so it's not always that easy, but you're right. If you would not be willing to help out your neighbor, don't ask them to help you out.
So I know growing up, a lot of our family trips revolved around Red Angus conventions. So, what tips do you have for people who maybe want to plan an extra day or two around a convention? How can they figure out, what are the best attractions maybe on the way down or in that area so that they can spend an extra day or two?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of different resources out there now. I mean, when we were kids, it was so much different now than now, right? When we were kids, you didn't just grab your phone and Google what's nearby me. But now we have so many resources at our fingertips. Just, Google the city you're going to, top attractions. TripAdvisor is going to have, some suggestions for you. There's also a lot of like tour booking sites like Viator. That's probably the most popular one that you can go and, put your city that you're going to, and even just for ideas. It doesn't mean you have to go book a tour, right? It just might be an idea of like, oh, I didn't even know that was there, and do an attraction there. Again, it depends, like you said, when you were a kid. So when you're kids, aquariums, like those are fun, or like really cool zoos, like the San Diego Zoo. That's one of the best zoos in the country. So there's just a lot of like little things you could sprinkle in. Or like on the road trip too, there's a website, I think it's called roadtripper.com, and you can literally put in like your start point and your end point, and you can even search in like gas stations along the way and like plan out your stops along the way. So that's a really great resource too if you really are like a DIYer and just kind of want to map out a road trip on your own.
Awesome. Well, Cheyenne, where can people go to connect with you if they don't want to DIY and have someone help them?
Yeah, so you can go to alltravelmatters.com. My company name is All Travel Matters. And there's a plan button on there that has my profile as well as my other agent's profile. And you can also find us on Instagram or Facebook at All Travel Matters.
All right. Well, folks, I will put that link in the show notes along with any other resources that were mentioned here today. And happy ranching and book that vacation.
Thank you.